Okay.
Okay, thanks.
It's good to give them a context of what it is.
What does it mean? Because again, these are like, they have no context to judge what we're asking. I had suggested to Patrick that he and I, or anybody else that wants to, is have a phone call with these guys and just sort of walk through these and try to get them focused on that.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea. Any others?
Maybe on community preferences, you could put more shop services, etc. This one says housing options with a convenient walk to, but maybe that's not important, but just more services.
Oh, you mean more, yes, retail.
Shops and services,
more,
yeah, like
okay, more,
expanding
okay,
the
gotcha,
downtown
gotcha.
area.
Any others?
What's it? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So when does this go live?
Next week.
Okay. And so I suppose the next conversation is how we get this advertised.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other one on number 10, adult children housing barriers. Could be for any of them really, but for the barriers to owning, renting in Hamilton, they have an other, but I mean, I was thinking the lack of different housing types might be a good bullet. You know, lack of an appropriate housing type for that person or group of people, right? I mean, it was high cost of living, lack of employment, transportation issues, and other. I mean, it kind of gets to it later on, but.
Yeah, another question we could actually ask is, you know, where they ask, are you planning to move in the next whatever number of years is sort of a one that goes with it. If you are planning to, what size housing do you plan to move it to in your next move? Will it be larger, smaller?
Right.
Downtown, you know, something like that that gets sort of like, what are they looking for?
Right, right.
Or you could have part of the response be apartment, condo, cottage, something like that too, because that would also give more options and maybe get a better feel of what people want for.
And you could then sort it
future.
by the age of the people who are answering it and the choices that they make.
Right. Yep.
There's no way, Patrick, is there for this kind of survey with the machinery, not the machinery, but the software that's being used to relate answers back and forth to each other, is there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Because if you can relate, like if you had the question, what kind of place do you want to live in, and some of it was large house, medium, small house, or large house, medium house, cottage kind of thing, or condo, and then how old.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what they were saying. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, like
you can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself living 10 years from now? In which of these kinds of houses or housing options? And then you could sort that by age.
Right.
Yeah, that would be good.
There's also no income here. I wonder if that's,
Yeah.
you know, we want to
Yeah.
ask that question is, you know, brackets.
I
your
thought
in-
about that too.
Your income and, you know, how they do in standard surveys, 50, you know, 0 to
Yeah.
50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100.
Because then I think if you sorted by that, you would see a difference in whether people think it's affordable or not.
And it'd probably give us a better understanding too of whether or not the respondents to the survey are indicative of demographic
Yeah.
in those brackets.
Yeah.
And I think that's a
Yeah.
good understanding to know that
Yeah.
we don't always get good representation across the different brackets.
Because then you could extrapolate if you saw certain brackets and make some assumptions about the town across.
Okay. No, I think that's enough to have a call with them, right? Get a few added and modified. So someone just mentioned about having that call, and then how do we do the outreach in terms of how do we get people to know about this survey, right? Do we have a plan for that, or do they have a plan for that?
Yeah, I think
That was in the checklist.
it's in the checklist.
Yeah, there was stuff, social media, there's 2 or 3 different kinds of social media listed. There could be a blast from the town calling system. Facebook, there's
Right.
at least 3 different pages of Facebook that could
At
be
least,
posted
yeah.
on.
We talked about the library.
Yep.
Library.
Senior
yeah.
center,
Yeah, senior center.
yeah.
Uh,
Community house.
What about schools? Is this legitimate kind of thing to post through the schools?
To send a note home through the schools?
How does that work, Richard?
Nice.
Does that work for me?
Well, how does it
How
work?
does it work?
That would be a good question. You'd have to print up a whole bunch of flyers and give them to the schools. They have them given to the teachers.
But would they, I guess is the
We get
question.
a
Do they?
a
Have
little bit of
they?
question.
monthly email from the school
Mhm.
called News to Use, so like my kids go to Cutler and we get an email, so you could just have them like add something on there.
So they'll email to the parents? Oh,
Yeah, they
okay.
do it, I think it's monthly or
Yeah, I think it's
bi-weekly, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a question if they would, right?
Right.
What do they typically, have they said how much they get for responses on this? Is it like 10%, 5%?
It really varies. I think Hamilton typically does a pretty good job of responding to survey kinds of things, above average.
I think the last time I remember, we got like 25% of households.
Yeah, when they did, Sean's survey a
Quite
couple years
good.
ago, yeah.
That's great.
Oh, yeah, if you get 5%, you're doing well.
Yeah. We have some in the newspaper,
Yeah.
too late.
Yeah, I have a conversation with Tim McCarthy tomorrow and other things that he's pumping me on, so I'll get some equal time from him.
Okay.
Bobby Gates, who does the town's Twitter page and Facebook stuff, I'm getting him information too, so
Mhm.
got those going.
Give it to me too, because I'm on 3 actively, so I can make sure it gets on.
Mr. Facebook,
Pardon?
Mr. Facebook.
Oh, God, please.
Town website, front page.
works.
Right. What else are we missing?
Would they do the call, or is that just really for emergencies?
I'm gonna have to ask.
Yeah, I would think that
That's
would
iffy.
not be.
Yeah,
Probably not.
yeah.
But I like the idea of the schools, if it would be in there in time for people to do the survey.
Do we have a time frame?
It's up for a
What
few
is it,
weeks,
2
right?
weeks?
2 to 3 weeks, I think they said, right?
Two.
Two. Okay. I can find out about the schools, or at least one of them. See what they'll do.
Good.
What else are we missing? Anything?
So is this just to advertise the survey, or do we want to be advertising the focus groups as well?
I
the community
think that
meetings?
we need to do both.
Yeah.
At the same time or
Yeah.
separately?
What do you think?
I try not to, it just confuses me.
Well, that first focus group's in early
February the
February, so I think we should have it as part of this. Get on people's minds, it's only a few weeks away,
5th. Right.
so,
And is there a way to put a link to information on that so that it just is really short and it says that the groups are going to, the dates and the times, and then a link for more information?
Well, if Bobby sets up the town webpage, he can, I would think he can create a link,
yeah.
so people can just click on that
Yeah.
link, and then it'll just go to the website and say, focus groups, date, location, time.
Just incidentally, I do have a library reserved for February the 5th. I've made the formal request to the school for the cafeteria on March the 20th. I couldn't get the library for March the 20th. They're doing their book sale, which they do for
Oh,
a
yeah.
two-week period, and it was already reserved, so wasn't gonna get that no matter what.
Right. That's fine. Do we have a backup plan if school isn't available?
I'll
Senior
try
center.
the community house.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Great.
Worst comes to worst, we'll do the senior center. I don't find it to be very conducive to public meetings.
No.
Yeah, not the way the tables
Yeah.
are set up.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we need to be doing? We need to do, board members we need to get kind of some assignments on where we need to show up to promote this,
Right.
correct? I mean, you and I had talked briefly today about a list of boards that we should go to that makes sense. I don't know if you had time to do anything with that today, but we should at least assign people those. You know, I don't know how many there really are that make sense to go to. I mean, there are 10 or 12 tops, probably. And then have a quick little blurb, I guess, written up to bring up at those meetings, so we're all saying the same thing. I think makes sense.
Yeah, we can put that on the town website.
Yeah.
Do you think we should send an email out to each chair of each board?
Oh, absolutely,
With
yeah.
a flyer like this?
Yes, yeah, I mean, yeah, we should be absolutely doing that.
And
And, I mean, and honestly, you know, any person we send an email to like that, we should ask them to distribute it
Right,
ideally to
everybody
people
they
they
know.
know.
I thought that they were going to meet the train and hand out cards with the email, the website to fill out the survey.
Yeah, they're doing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, probably should make a sense to create a list of who's doing what.
Yes.
We have Richard is going to post the information on the survey with a link once that is active. So hopefully that can be active like in the next 2 or 3 days. So we can then post that on Facebook. So you're going to check on the schools.
Schools, yep. We'll do, I guess we'll just assign people to various boards, right? I mean, it might be 1 per board or 2 per board or something like that, or 1 per 2 boards, something like that, over the next day or two. Once we have that list, you and I can figure out what boards it makes sense to go to.
Right.
And we'll send that out.
Ryan, did you write something for the newspaper that I read, or did?
I didn't. It was probably,
Did you write something?
I did for the focus groups.
Is that what that was for? Because there was a draft of something that went around. Thought that Brian and I read something that,
yeah, you had written something about it.
About
I think it
what?
was just the focus groups, though. It wasn't about the survey.
No, it wasn't about
No.
the survey. It was about-
okay,
It's about the
No, I-
focus.
Yeah,
okay.
I guess what I'm saying is this, most of this stuff, well, going to the boards is more about the focus groups
Yeah.
than the survey.
Yeah,
The school email is both. Any digital communication can be both,
yeah.
right? Survey and the focus groups. In person, I guess, is focus groups, depending on, I guess it depends on when the meeting is too, but that everybody goes to.
And flyers to board chairs? Or an email to board chairs?
Email to board chairs.
Yeah.
You can do that, Patrick, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to have, as much as possible, emails and things we post on Facebook and all that be very, very similar
Yeah.
language. Just so it's all consistent.
Yeah,
We all have
exactly.
similar language, just mention at
Yeah.
these boards, I mean, just keep it consistent.
So
Not that
then-
it's that complicated, but it's just, keep it
So
consistent.
who's gonna write it? Patrick, you?
Yes.
I'll draft
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Well, and if it were like this flyer, but with the
Yeah.
survey included on it, then it could be consistent.
right.
Yeah, it's got to be really simple.
Yeah,
too,
Yeah.
because
exactly.
I don't read any emails that are longer than 2 lines, personally, so.
Yeah, but that doesn't constitute, you mean 2 lines,
If I can't see the whole thing, I don't
as
read
many
it,
sentences as you can get in them?
as Rick knows.
Down the rabbit hole.
Huh?
Do we need anything in the paper? The
Yeah, well, you
chemical?
said you're gonna be talking to Tim about an article in the paper.
Right.
Can we count on him to actually write it
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
and get it right?
Well, I
Well.
don't know about that.
That's hit or miss, but
Is it
Ah, I
possible
mean,
to put the
given-
flyer in the paper, or do you have to probably pay for that, huh?
No, it's news.
He'll write an article on it based on what I offer.
Given the amount of news that's in it, it should be the top of the page headline.
Yeah,
Yes, bold.
and that'll mention both things, right? The focus groups and the survey. What else was I just thinking?
And we get it up on the electronic board?
Meaning the website?
No,
Oh.
the
No, in front of the
electronic
police
board in
station.
front of the public safety building that's flashing various messages. Focus groups was
That's
on
a
it, I
good
think.
idea.
The focus
That-
groups was on it, I
It-
think.
I
I
was.
didn't even know there was one.
Yeah. They wanted their board, they got it, and, hey, we'll get something out of it.
Yeah, something about the survey and go to the town website. I mean, that's, you
Yeah,
know,
oh, good idea.
yeah.
Yeah. Who is they that wanted the survey, wanted the board?
Council on Aging, Police Department, you know, for public information
Yeah.
kinds of
Yeah.
things that
It's fine,
communities do.
yep.
What else do we need? That pretty much covers it, right?
I feel like the social media is gonna be the
yeah,
critical spot.
yeah.
It is, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and especially if you ask people to pass it on to other people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just start with, this is not a chain letter.
Right.
This is important.
Are there other clubs in town, like sent to the churches or other clubs?
Well, there's
Rotary.
Rotary.
Right, I wondered about Rotary.
Rick
Rick
Rick is on Rotary board or something, so
Yeah.
you could maybe ask
I can-
him.
Yeah, can do that.
I want to make sure that the folks down at the Grove get some flyers too.
And I know somebody there, so I could Do you know the person who's sort of the administrator down there? Okay, yeah, she would send it out.
So you'll design the flyer, are you gonna circulate that, or?
Yeah, I'd like to get it tacked up here and there, circulated.
No, I mean, to the planning board, or?
Oh, sure.
you-
Yeah.
Because,
Too many's.
because I'm sure we have a
Not a
design,
problem.
we probably have a design whiz here somewhere in this group, I don't know who it might be.
I don't know.
Yes, but finding a design whiz with time is another matter.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Speaking of design whiz, is everybody okay with the flyer? Like I say, the only thing that isn't nailed down is the location on March the 20th, but we can get that changed as soon as I do have confirmation on it.
Okay. Yeah, no, yeah, overall it's fine.
It had included the housing production plan mention and some other text on it, which Rick and I and Brian also felt like we're mixing too many things into what we're asking people to
Yeah.
concentrate on.
Right,
And
and,
most people don't know what a housing production plan is.
right, and to me, to some layperson, they would think, oh, how much housing are you planning on producing, and oh my God, what, you know, so. I can, believe me, after seeing some of the comments today on a couple of things, it's just like, oh, okay. Yeah, you never know, so you gotta keep it pretty dead simple. Okay.
Do we have any idea when we're getting back the redraft of the demographic study?
No, I'll find out.
Ah, they did change the pictures.
Yes. Yeah.
There were 3 pictures of the same house supposedly. It's hard to tell they were the same house, but.
Well, they had, no, it was Firehouse Place. There was 3 pictures of that, wasn't
Well,
it?
what, was that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still, I mean, one of them's still there, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize it was Firehouse Place.
Most people won't, you know, a few hundred people will, but.
Yeah. Okay, I think, does that cover everything, all the outreach?
As far as I know.
It seems like that's about all we can do.
If something comes to mind, I'll email all of you and just email me that individually.
We should, the other one we should do is get it to Jay Burnham, and he can send it out to his list, and
True. Yeah, and I can do that. And he can put a link in this news blast.
yep, yep.
All right, I'll put that in.
Anything else regarding master plan?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Think about a time, Rick, when you want to sit with me and call them later
Okay.
this week. I have something Thursday morning, but other than that, I'm good.
Okay. Maybe Thursday afternoon.
Sure.
I'll check my schedule and get back to you.
Working,
Yeah, I'll have my secretary call your secretary.
no problem.
A message you'll never get through.
Yeah, your secretary never answers, that's a problem.
All right, update on bylaw amendments? Where are we with some of that?
I have had a request that came to me from the town manager, who had gotten something from the president of Pingree. And they have had some issues with some of the yard signage. So I've made a just a recommendation on an article that I'll pass out. I'm showing you what the bylaw looks like under signs, and then I'm giving you on the front page what I'm proposing. And really what it does is it allows for yard signs for events and things like that
Temporary,
that schools would have, which right now, as you'll see on number 4, under 6.3.2, which covers residential, yard signs are subject to the grant of a special permit by the planning board for specified periods not exceeding 1 year, as well as other and larger signs, which that's really, you know, we need a BB gun, we don't need an elephant gun, and that's what it is.
Yeah, like, I mean, like I said, it's never really been policed or enforced. I mean, everybody puts up yard signs at election time and,
Yeah, I hope
No,
that,
you know,
that's excluded.
oh, yeah, right, but.
Right.
But have people actually had issues with actually doing this? Or has somebody said something based on this? Yeah.
As I understand it, there have been frictions between Penguin Hall and Pingree. And
Oh, you mean they're
there-
battling signs?
Exactly. There have been, you know, who can have larger signs, who can have more signs, who can have, you know, signs, you know, flooded on private property or an individual property. So this is a way at getting at trying to level out the playing field. And what I'm proposing is just one sign, 1 yard sign per property, excluding election-related signs.
Yeah, I saw that.
And these would be for a 2-month period, maximum of 3 square feet to be reviewed and approved by the building commissioner, rather than having to come to the board.
Yeah, this is like not gonna be enforced, but, I'd make it less. I'd make it like 1 month.
So I wondered about the 2 months, although when he says Pingree or a school, they're going to be recruiting people all summer.
That's right, and you know, you're talking about having events that people plan for months and months at a time. So, you know, it was told to me after I had had 1 month down that, you know, they typically want and need to advertise for tuition and other kinds of enrollments for way more than that. So 2 months, you know,
Well,
was
the other
thought
thing
to be
is-
a better time frame.
You know, during election time, okay, I guess it says doesn't include, but yeah, I mean, people have well over one sign, right? Then
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So
you
I-
excluded it, so yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
That and well over 1 month too, because sometimes you get the signs out, some of them out early and then stagger them
Yeah.
and get a lot more,
Yeah.
get them out every couple of weeks, put more out.
Yeah, I kind of decided that, you know, I'll just, in my simplistic verbiage here, I'll just take election signs completely out of this and make it clear that, you know, that's not what we're talking about. We're
Yeah.
talking about the, you know, driver's ed school like is at the community house
Right.
and Pingree and Penguin and yada, yada.
Brookwood and sometimes the prep and
Yeah.
others.
So should it be 2 signs then per property?
To me,
Because suppose you have a child
Say-
at Short Country Day and Pingree,
yeah.
and you want to advertise for both because you're heavily into the PTA or whatever those organizations are that I'm not involved in.
They're just gonna have to pick.
Fine, it's fine with me. I mean,
I'm
I don't like
trying
those
to
signs.
inflict family turmoil to the
That's right.
extent
Pick
possible.
your favorite.
That was one of the reasons why I pulled out election signs, because, you know, what happens if you have a family that have multiple candidates that they're supporting?
Multiple offices.
Oh, right,
Exactly.
exactly.
Or opposing candidates and for the same office. There were several of those around.
Exactly.
Yeah, Dan, it would depend on which school gave you the better scholarship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No comments.
Do you have kids at both?
Patrick, I thought that permanent signage was under the zoning board of appeals.
When we changed site plan review, it put it with the planning board.
Okay.
I did check the old bylaw, and we did change that as part of the revision.
Okay,
Okay.
what's next?
Well, on the sign topic, I also mentioned to Patrick today that we need to revise our sign bylaw in general.
Right.
I mentioned this last time, that it'd be great to get some comments from Bill Bowler, and even from places that do signage a lot, like, you know, Linda at the shopping center, who runs that, and just comments from other people, businesses that have had to deal with this. The schools, I know, have had to deal with it for certain signage, and so, you know.
It's a bigger task than I think we have the time for, without getting a significant amount of outside input. We need, you know, downtown businesses and the shopping center to give us some concrete stuff. You know, I think we've got a pretty good handle on the residential districts. Don't have to worry about industrial, but I do think that, you know, this is something that, you know, people are very sensitized about, particularly in downtowns when livelihoods, you know, are affected. And I do find that most businesses think signage probably carries more weight than what it does, but try to convince them to think otherwise.
Right.
It's just not gonna happen.
Right.
I had asked Dan to chat with us tonight about changes to the cell bylaw relative to micro systems, and thoughts that he had relative to what we might want to pursue there.
Okay.
I think the bylaw is written pretty well, and it's the condensed one, which I like, versus the ones that I've come across a lot. The big thing with the micros that I think it's important to understand that mobility that was in here before us was not, they're not micro cell company. You know, they're a vertical real estate. And I think the bylaw has to establish that companies can't come in and just do one without kind of providing a plan for the whole town. Because most of the carriers, the Verizons and AT&Ts that are doing a lot of the microcell now, have full town plans. They don't have, or at least full district plans, like the downtown district, because that's pretty much the only area that they would put the micros in. You know, that's the big thing I see with these. Somehow we have to incorporate into the bylaw and try to keep them from placing I don't know if that's the right term, prevent them from placing new poles in somebody's front yard, even though they're allowed to or the DOT is allowing them to do that in the.
Right away.
Yeah, I mean, right in the right of way. I mean, that one that Mobility is right in front of that hair salon. I mean, it's right in front of his front door. And I'm surprised the person who owns the building or the business has not been before us based on that.
Yeah, I was given a visit the other day by the owner, and he had surveyed the property when he bought it some time back, and his survey has some discrepancies between it and what Mobilite has shown us, to the point where I think what Mobilite was proposing had their antenna on his property. So there's some issue there that needs to be reconciled.
Right, and I think that's one of the items that should be added in here, is that a actual boundary survey be provided for that area, because right now we say site boundaries, that's somewhat interpretive, and we say topography. It doesn't really say, show me the actual property lines and signed and stamped by a survey.
One of the things that I did, I proposed and we ended up putting into the Willow Street overlay is requiring the applicants to give us some visual understanding of what we're going to be seeing, and particularly from very public locations.
Right.
That the board can determine and require that they give us some graphic representation. I think that might be worthwhile too, more than just the photo simulations.
Right, I would agree.
So Dan, do you have any examples of bylaws that require a plan? Top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, but most of the work that we're doing is on existing towers or existing utility poles. So Verizon and AT&T basically have agreements with National Grid or Verizon Landlines, who owns the towers.
Yeah.
Based on, it's the grid that owns them in this town, right? And that's the route they're taking. They're not going through Mass DOT to get a right of way.
Okay.
So they're not touching the ground at all.
Which, I think if we had our druthers, we'd want that, right? We'd want it
Right.
on an existing telephone pole than
Right.
having any new poles.
Correct.
I mean, I know that there's limitations, that's what he said last time, about where they can go on certain poles, or they can't go on certain poles, but.
That's his
Well,
his interpretation of their technology. I mean, we've put them on everything for both Verizon and AT&T. We've put them on poles with only secondary and poles with primary. It's just a matter of how you protect both systems.
Are you talking about, when you're saying putting them on, you talking about the same kind of thing mobility is talking about putting on
Yes.
poles?
the actual equipment.
Yeah, the equipment.
Yeah,
So they're planning on, it's basically, looks like the water canister on top of the utility pole. But the difference is they're planning on building a new pole.
Right.
I mean, they're basically building a new pole.
right.
Even though they're sinking a wood pole into the ground, it's basically putting up a new tower.
That's right.
That's,
Where most of the carriers are trying to put it on existing.
Okay.
Can
And
we,
then, or replacing existing ones that are leaning sideways.
So why is Mobility wanting to put up a brand-new pole instead of putting it on an existing pole?
I think it's their business plan. That's how they make their money.
so they don't want to negotiate with other,
They have an agreement with the
Sprint.
DOT that they can put it in the right of way,
Right.
but that's their pole, right?
Right.
If-
Sprint's paying Mobility, whereas most of the other people are paying just National Grid, who owns the utility pole, or in some towns, Verizon, who owns the utility
Okay.
pole. The existing utility poles.
Right.
And I think that's where it gets confusing, because there's plenty of buildings downtown where they could put that antenna, but that doesn't make any
Right.
monetary sense to Mobility.
Right.
Got it.
So I'd be curious what town council says about that too, in terms of how far that falls under the Telecommunications Act.
What's that? Just,
I mean, they haven't shown us alternatives, for one.
right.
I mean, not to get off subject and into that, but it's this public forum, so. They have not shown us alternatives to locating.
right, and that's what we told them
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
needed to
Yeah.
come back with was.
They had homework for
Yeah.
our meeting on
Yeah.
the 29th,
Yeah.
so.
especially when we talked about the light poles that are in the park, that are nearby.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah, and he kept referencing, oh, well, that's not part of the project, and
Oh.
the project, like, well, yeah, we know.
Put it on
but
the house.
We don't like the project, so that's why we're looking for something else. Okay.
So could you draft any kind of language or recommendations for changes to the,
I can look at that.
I mean, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to keep it simple, like you said, the one kind of model one we got was extremely lengthy and complicated and,
Yeah, because it sounds like we
Read
think
the
that
bylaw.
our existing one is pretty good, so it sounds like there's a section that just needs to be inserted.
Yeah, I think we can add some language about microcells and,
Yeah.
or define a microcell better,
Yep.
maybe. I mean, you cover it really well, you know, they're basically building an antenna site, and it's how we want to interpret it.
Right. So we
Right.
need to define what a microcell is.
Right.
yeah.
And then it,
I mean, a microcell is basically an antenna facility,
right.
you know, and you could almost just say an antenna facility, including any type of new micro technology, and add that simple language into the bylaw, and then expand maybe on some of these items about placement of, you know, that there'll be no new placement of utility poles.
Well, that's what I was wondering, can we say that? Right, I mean, can we
Right.
say it needs to be on existing
Yeah.
infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, we can push the envelope on it
Yeah.
and, you know, let them come back and, you know, it'll be a,
Right.
Tennis game.
yeah, it'll be a tennis game.
I mean, they could be stalling because it's about to become T-Mobile Sprint or whatever they're gonna call the new company. So they may not even be interested.
Right. So when are we gonna see 5G?
Verizon made their first 5G call about a month ago.
Well, I mean, it's in terms of rollout.
I think, like, real rollout, probably end of the year.
And will that require just modification of existing cell sites?
I take the fifth. I take the fifth.
Oh, okay.
We're not allowed to drink here.
I don't know, if you have Wi-Fi in your house right now,
Yeah,
and you run at 2.5 gig, or do you run at 5 gig?
I have no idea. I just got a brand new one from Verizon.
Try to run it at 5 gig and go in the other room.
I just know on my smart TV, I'm getting 20 megabytes per second.
Right. You put a little piece of tape over the camera in it, too.
No, yeah. Yeah. Well, no, because these small sites are, a lot of them are 5G capable, right?
Yeah, they're filling in basically the goal of them is to fill in the gap that the macros can't provide.
Because 5G doesn't go as
Coverage.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, 5G covers from here to that wall. Whereas
Ah,
2.5 will cover from here to the end of the building.
Got it, okay.
So you're gonna see a lot more of this type of installation
On existing utility poles more than.
is where they should be, yes.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's no worse than, I mean, I don't know, if you drive around town, you'll see the Comcast cabinets on utility poles all over
Yeah,
town. And
yeah.
it's no worse than that.
Yeah, and we own the poles in the town.
The town owns the poles?
No.
Oh, we own the streetlights.
Right,
Sorry.
correct.
How do you, if,
You own just the lights on the pole.
The
I think-
fixture,
or-
the
yeah,
fixture.
Fixture, yeah. Yep.
National Grid just gave them to the town. Said, we're out of the street lighting business. Thank you, bye.
So
when
we're-
did that happen?
Number of years ago.
About 3 years ago.
Yeah, they don't want to have to maintain them.
Right.
And then we got a grant for $250,000 to replace all of them, make them LED.
So is
I
that,
think I remember that.
do you pay that? Is there just a payment in, like in, they don't, they're not individually metered, are they?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No,
there's
it's
no
usually
way.
there's just a agreement,
Probably.
Yeah,
$10 per
there's
pole per
probably a
year or
per,
something.
per unit charge, flat rate charge.
Back to Comcast. When you look at a pole and you see something on it, how do you know it's a Comcast
Box.
box? Yeah. What do you,
It could be Verizon, like Fios too.
or
I don't
what
know.
do they look, do they all
I don't know
look
what
similar?
Individually, yeah, they're just white NEMA boxes.
What box?
NEMA, They're rated, outdoor rated boxes.
Okay.
Plastic boxes, basically.
Yeah.
How big are they, roughly?
Probably that size of that, like, little cabinet
Like
over there,
the-
or that.
I've never
Roll.
even noticed.
The one on wheels way over? Okay.
Actually,
So
if you
about
see
2 feet high and about 2 feet
Power
wide.
outages for a long time, they had generators all over the place, a little
Yeah.
chain to the poles running up to the box, powering them.
Okay.
Okay, what's
Anything else
next?
on bylaws?
Do you feel comfortable in talking about some of the inclusionary stuff? I know you've been looking
You
at.
just keep firing stuff at me, and I just keep playing tennis and bouncing it back to you, so.
it's,
Patrick is having a serious bout of anxiety. I've tried to get him to take some medication for that, but he's resisted that.
Do you have your physician's license?
No, but I'm a practicing, I've been practicing a long time. Self-medicating too, about inclusionary housing in lieu of payment, that I think people feel our current inclusionary housing bylaw payment is inadequate. And I don't have it in front of me because I didn't realize I was going to be put on the spot.
Do you know what number it is?
I
not
don't.
in here.
I don't have the bylaw with me.
Oh, there's-
Oh, in the
I thought I
bylaw?
saw
Yeah.
it in here. I thought it was 144. Does that sound right?
In this packet?
I noticed we had some
Maybe I'm
interesting
remembering
inserts in
something
here,
else, but I
Patrick.
thought I saw.
Yeah, I noticed
See on the
that.
fluoride?
It was
Some
in an email
bills
he
even.
sent out this week.
Yeah, it wasn't.
That's right, some fluoride bills.
Okay, it's number 8.
Number 8?
Yeah, you want it? You want to see it?
8 in what? Are you looking at the
In the
bylaws?
I'm looking at the bylaw.
Oh, you have the bylaws.
I have that bylaw.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
it's in the minutes.
Page 70, okay. I'll open the book to you, to the page, and bring it over to you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know roughly what it
46
says.
Right here.
Well, why don't you read it? Why don't you read it?
The whole thing?
No.
I-
I was just looking for the dollar, the payment in lieu of amount.
There's one, it's 146.
Yeah.
Okay.
146.
146.
45 or something like that.
I'm sorry?
It's on the-
146 right now per unit.
Yeah, 146,
Oh, it works out.
exactly.
Thank you. So there was concern about that not being sufficient.
It's on page
And
70.
in fact, we negotiated with,
Oh, you did the same thing, right?
I can't remember the name of,
Canterbury.
well, it's
Well,
Canterbrook.
Development of Canterbrook, yeah.
the Canterbrook owner for $215 a unit? Yeah, $215 a unit for a total of $430 for the 2 units, which I think which was closer and in line with reality. Patrick looked at Littleton and Brookline and maybe some others.
Danvers.
Beverly. Beverly was in there too, right?
And they can get pretty complex, but they're all trying to do the same thing, is figure out a number that has objective criteria that can be applied when a developer comes in with a project and meets our inclusionary housing trigger, which is 7 units or more, I think. So if you're building 7 units or more, 1 unit has to be an inclusionary unit, and then every
Wait, it's up to, the first is 10, and then it's 7 thereafter.
Okay, thank
That's what
you.
it is.
So Brookline, I read today, and Brookline had a formula that basically, and I'll paraphrase it, and I may not get it right, basically said it will be the difference between what the cost of that unit would have been built on site and what the cost of a comparable existing market rate unit would be in that town. Though it didn't offer any sort of formula as how do you qualify a market rate affordable unit, although you could come up with that. And
Didn't it read, and maybe I read it wrong, but in the development, I thought it was going to be what the affordable unit would go for versus what the market rate in that development would go for as comparable units. Maybe I'm wrong, but
oh, you mean the market rate unit and the affordable unit?
in the development.
Oh, okay. I didn't read that, but that's maybe what it meant.
And so I still don't quite understand then what the number is, what,
Well, so the affordable unit has a cost that it can't be more than, based
Right.
on
Right.
median income and everything, right, the DHCD guidelines. And then the market rate units, or whatever the developer is selling those for.
right?
As long as it's a comparable unit, right? You can't have one that's 2 bedroom, one that's 4
Okay,
bedroom,
so
right?
that may be what they were
I
saying.
think that's what it was saying. The
Okay.
difference between that,
Oh, okay.
It's how
Is-
much that they give to the.
Right, so let's say at Canterbrook,
Yeah.
the
That's how I
affordable
read it.
unit would be somewhere around like 240, 250.
something like that.
The market
Least.
rate, and I'm guessing, but let's say for the fun of it, is.
600.
Is
or whatever,
600.
Yeah,
So, the difference would be,
350.
right, 350. So.
That one seemed a little high, but.
That's what I thought. I thought it
But
was.
realistic, high, but.
Well, but,
it is-
right, it's more realistic to what the actual cost would be,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
Right.
So there's that option, which is, which is fine. Or you could do what Littleton, they had 2 times the area median, 80%, 2 times 80% of area median income,
82 times,
which is.
So 160% of area median income,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Theirs was kind of loosey-goosey because they didn't define some of the terms they were using, but I used 80%. So in Hamilton, it's 114,000 and 80% is, I think, 97,
Right.
right.
So you're
97.2.
194.
So I said, okay, well, we could do something like, just do simply 3 times that. So you're at, for the purposes of argument,
75 or something.
close to 300 per unit. So that's sort of where we are, it's like,
Which we need a formula that changes
right,
over
that's
time.
why I thought, well, and actually the
I don't know.
Brookline would too,
Right, both of those would.
because the affordable unit would change with income levels over time, and the market rate would change based on
That's right.
market demand.
That's
So
right.
you'd always have, it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
Right. The interesting thing with the Brookline one, again, if we're reading it right, it's how you define, is it what that unit goes for, or what
Yeah.
the initial price, right?
Right.
If it's 650, but it goes for 600,
Well, and also,
How do you do that?
it's prospective, because the developer's coming in and hasn't built anything.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So it's like,
Yeah.
he's saying, well, I'm going to price them at X, but when they hit the market may be terrible.
Right.
And it's, dropped significantly. So you're subject to market conditions, and it's all conjecture until it's built and put on the market and starts selling, so.
But he's gotta have a pro forma though, that tells him his minimum, maximum, and his minimum ideal and maximum.
So the question is, do we want to delve into that level of detail, and will a developer give us his pro forma?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I would go,
I don't think so.
I think a developer would rather know what they're dealing with.
Right, it's a more
So the
fixed.
3 times the 80% percentile of average income would be better.
Right.
Well, they're gonna know what they're dealing with either way. They know what they're gonna wanna price the units
Yeah.
before they build the thing.
We won't, though.
They
I
won't
mean,
want
they'll
to
tell us.
Right.
And if the market crashed, went down, there's more uncertainty in the market than there is in a number that you know what the 80th percentile is.
Well, yes. But again, if they come in and they say, this is what we're gonna sell these units for, that's what they're held to, whether they sell for that or not, right? I mean, that's just the gamble you take, I guess.
So you would
Because
just,
like you said, it all happens well before anything gets built or sold.
so just thinking out loud, so they actually, well, with our friends at Canterbrook, they actually said they'd
Yeah.
pay, they gave us a schedule of payments, and I didn't see that in the Brookline, a schedule of payments.
Yeah, well, that was-
When that would occur. So you're right, you could say, it'll be whatever the difference is between what the sale price of the affordable and what you sell your first unit for, and pay, or your 10th unit for, and payment will be due at the median or the average of the first 10, you know, I mean, you're getting into like.
Well, the problem is that you're gonna have developments, that have, you know, let's say it's 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom or whatever, right? So you gotta, and they can't have an affordable unit that is a 1-bedroom, right? You can't do that. You gotta have it be a comparable unit. So as long as you've got a comparable unit and a comparable, you know, affordable unit, you know, I think we need to know at the start what they're selling that unit for, right? The market rate unit for, period, base it on that. It's not what they sell for in a year, it's not, you know, it's just, it's that. If you go that route.
So that's taking the difference between the affordable unit and
Market.
In the market.
market unit.
Yeah, what an affordable unit would sell for, which we would know.
And there was an interesting, somebody, and I forget, I think it was Mark Johnson, made this observation, which kind of like throws a monkey wrench into the works, is you can't have, in order to qualify to purchase affordable housing, you can't have an asset base, you're limited to your asset base. So you can't like downsize and have more than, I don't know what that number is now, but it used to be like.
They raised it, I think.
It used to be like 200,000.
Right.
Or 250,000. So it's like, well, okay, if I'm not bringing in an asset base and I'm 80% of median income, which is pretty good income, certainly in Hamilton, and even the area median income is in the upper 80s, low 90s. You could certainly be saving for it to get in, but it's a hurdle. You know, you've got to come up with, you know, $50,000 or whatever. So, anyway.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's really just what direction we want to go.
one's
Right.
one's kind of
It's-
simpler than the other. Brookline, I think, is. I like it because it's sort of more dynamic and you get a larger amount out of it potentially. I think it's more complex to apply, but that doesn't mean we can't do it.
Well, it would give you a principle to work from
Right,
when they come in.
right.
Yeah.
Gives you room for negotiation,
Right,
as
right.
opposed to a formula that says 3 times 80% of the area median income.
And the problem with that one now, as I'm thinking about it, is for what? A 2-bedroom, a 1-bedroom, a 3-bedroom?
Well, again, it's the comparable, right? It's the
Right.
comparable unit, so. You can't have a development of a bunch of 3-bedroom units and then have your affordables be 2.
No, you have
Right.
to compare a 2 to a 2.
Right.
I don't know, what do people have a preference for?
I like going for the bigger number. It's so hard for us to get the money as it
Yeah.
is.
Right.
And there's such a never-ending demand for capital for us to be able to advance on affordable housing projects. I would vote for the bigger number
The other thing you
approach.
could do is you could have both and just say the greater of. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
True.
if they come in, it makes sense too, because if they
Yeah.
come in with something that's not 600,000, and then all of a sudden we're dealing with a small gap, that could be less than 3 times the median.
Yeah,
So it has to be the greater of the two.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That maybe is,
We'll really muck it up good.
But again, it can be pretty simple.
No, no.
It's
I
pretty
get it.
simple.
yep,
Well,
But
that's-
I guess my concern is, I'm gonna come in here and tell you I'm paying 550. I'm looking for 550 for the unit. And then the market's hot again, and I'm gonna get 650 for the units now, and all of a sudden,
Right.
I've
Yeah, well,
shorted the
that's-
town.
that's where you could do it, so it's the average
Mhm.
of what you've gotten for the 10 units, because you would get the payment at the end of the 10 units when the first 10 are sold. So you could negotiate that.
But then what if he goes bankrupt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's the other side,
but-
right?
What was the deal? I
Same
can't
thing
remember. The
happened
deal was Canterbrook was at the 10th unit building permit, right?
Actually,
Or CO.
it was the
was
first
also-
payment, half was paid the first year.
At the end of next year, it's paid no matter that, whether that
No, at
10th
the end
unit's
of
built
this
or
year.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, what year are we in?
19, yes, yeah.
Yeah, the end of this year, and then
fall.
after the, was it
And then
the,
the end of the following year, end
Yeah.
of 20.
so, that's great, I mean,
And that's the negotiation, right? We can negotiate that like we did there.
Can you ask for a bond on that?
Sure.
Yep.
So you could ask him to bond it, which is short money for him,
yeah,
so that if he goes out, the town just goes and
Yeah.
collects the bond.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they're bonding the roadways anyway, right?
yeah,
Yep.
all the infrastructure.
Yep.
So I like the idea of either the greater of the two
Yeah.
Okay,
with a bond for the amount, for at least the first 10 units.
or we could say the first 5,
Yeah.
that gives them a year,
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
so he's
yeah,
got cash flow.
right. Yeah, we just need to, there's that fine line between, saying, I'm not doing this because this is too much, and just, so we gotta be careful of that,
Right, that was my only concern,
Yeah.
is to be,
but,
we don't want to kill off the goose that lays the
Yeah.
golden tax revenue. Well, I mean, no, Canterbrook is going to be a real boon to the town. That's going to be generating probably 300,000 plus in new tax revenues. And now we can have the residents there coming into the planning board and saying, well, we're the largest taxpayer in town, rather than people at Patton Ridge.
Speaking of Canterbrook, if we're finished with the inclusionary thing, I got a phone call followed up by an email from their attorney. I'll read you part of the email just to get your reaction. Just the long and short of it is that they want to do a model for marketing purposes, which is very typical. But they didn't think about that through the permitting process.
Well, they're going to have to come back and renegotiate.
We use a different
here's-
formula.
Yeah.
Here's the email. Canterbrook Capital, the owner and developer of the senior housing project, is seeking authorization from the planning board to construct a model unit during the construction of the infrastructure for the project. Given that the special permit contains a condition that no permanent structures may be constructed until the infrastructure is complete, the developer is required to obtain from the board a partial release of the covenant which contains the restriction on construction. In furtherance of this request, I have attached the applicable release and a portion of the approved plan showing the building and units 1, 2, and 3. Please note that the sale of any unit in the building to be constructed will require a further release of the covenant, and that no other construction of any permanent structures is being authorized by the release. Salutations, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just basically a request to slightly amend the project to allow for models to be constructed up front before the infrastructure
Is
is
this a minor
completed.
modification?
well,
I would consider it a minor.
yeah, I think it is, but the second part of that was interesting,
Yeah.
was that they could have it sold
Right, that's what I,
before it's all, one or more of those units sold before everything, before the infrastructure is complete.
right,
That's,
because then the question is it a model if you're going to sell it?
well,
Are they going to sell that, or are they going to sell prospective units that they haven't even built yet?
well, yeah, I mean, that's a possibility too.
That-
That's
that's-
just read funny.
Yeah, it did. Because why would you sell your,
You have to have the infrastructure in there before you can have occupancy, right? You gotta have a septic
Right.
system, you gotta have.
Well, by sale, though, they don't mean the money completed. All they mean is have a purchase and sale
Pre-sales and stuff.
negotiated and paid upon. So you'd only be, at that point, you'd only be giving a deposit.
Well, they can't, no, because you can't even close without a CO.
Right.
A CO being,
Certificate of
Certificate of
occupancy.
occupancy.
okay,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't like the way that's worded at the end.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, yeah,
It's
that's
like,
what.
oh,
just
somebody's
got me.
living there now, all of a sudden, the roads are still gravel and the
Yeah.
water line's not in, or the water line's, and then they're gonna come in.
That means they would have to build an outhouse.
Yep.
So we should just clarify that, just, I mean, I'm sure that's what they meant, but we should just make sure of that, and they can,
So procedurally, do we need to have a public hearing?
I consider that to be a minor modification that would not require a hearing.
Okay.
I think if the language gets cleaned up a little bit, it's okay.
yeah, can you just send around that proposed language
Yeah.
that she had in there?
So just to close out the affordable, I'm sorry, the
Inclusionary.
inclusionary housing, is that on your task list to do, or do you expect somebody else to do that?
It's on mine to do.
Okay. Is this something we're trying to get to the April town meeting?
It's been our desire to get that to April town meeting, but I will tell you, when the town manager got MAPC engaged in looking at it, as you recall, they sent us 176 pages of
Right.
far afield thinking,
Yeah.
which to me wasn't helpful. He told me that they would be willing to put something together, but it wouldn't be to us before fall town meeting.
Then, no.
Well, we don't
So
I think, I mean,
told
it's-
him that wasn't it, you know. I told him,
It's simple enough, as we just figured out, just that one section needs to get modified, and it's dead simple, really. So I think you can put the language together, we'll look at it, we'll have a hearing on it, and go from there. That's not, we don't need to wait till fall.
yeah,
you
we don't
just-
have to make it any more
No.
complicated than that.
No.
Just tell Joe that the planning board revolted.
Refuse to read all that material.
That's right. You're on strike.
Draw the lines.
Okay. Anything
But-
else on bylaws?
We thought we were federal workers.
That's all I have for
Okay.
now.
All right. Meeting-
Thanks, Rick, for your memory recall.
Which memory recall?
Oh, and the inclusionary.
Oh, yes.
Meeting minutes, has everybody had a chance to review? Issues? I'll make a motion to approve the December 18th, 2018 minutes as presented.
Second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Any updates from other boards?
The only note I'd get is there's a CPC meeting Thursday night,
Yeah.
if anybody's interested.
Okay. Did the Historic District have a second meeting on Tom Ford's?
Yeah, we did.
Did you-
Didn't I report that last meeting? I think I did.
I think you were going to have another meeting after
Oh,
that,
is
right?
that what it was?
I think that's what
Yeah,
it
No,
was.
we had a very successful meeting, and we placated, maybe not the right word. The neighbors were satisfied that the route had been followed, and they had an opportunity to speak and to observe their concerns for the historic district. So it was favorably voted upon,
Okay,
unanimously favorably voted upon.
thank you.
Does the historic district have standards as to maintenance of things like fences and,
Not fences. We have no authority over fences. That was left off as left off the original legislation.
It's only horizontal surfaces, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, sir?
Is it only horizontal surfaces?
No,
No.
it's,
Or it's
Buildings
not
have-
horizontal?
Not horizontal
That's
surfaces.
it, right.
Right,
I remember
opposite.
Yeah.
somebody
Like
mentioned.
driveways.
That's a
Right.
vertical surface.
It's only vertical surfaces.
no, it's sighting, it's views, it's 72 pages of law. I gave you the first page of it so you could look it up, and if you want to get,
I thought you'd have it memorized by now.
well, I've at least read it twice, put it that way. Memorized, no, but that's 72 pages of state law, and then you got town law on top of that, so it's not easy to ignore it. You need to pay attention to it.
Hey, Ed, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Will you be running in this next election?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Oh, you're-
What's your question? I'd be running for what?
Planning board,
Planning board, yes.
okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I enjoy the sport.
What are the next when are our next meetings? Because this one says the 23rd.
Yeah, the 23rd is the meeting. I'm glad you brought that up.
I thought that was the 22nd you sent out in the email.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember too.
I could be wrong on this. It may be the 22nd. It's actually the same night as the Board of Selectmen's meeting. This is the meeting where Jennifer and Judy and Adrian wanted to come and discuss with the board the process for the forum on the 5th. So that's what that meeting is about.
And that's the only topic at that meeting, right?
That is
Yes.
the only topic, and I made another mistake here. I should have put in January the 29th, because January 29th is the hearing for
Mobile.
mobility, as well as the hearing for the subdivision on Meyer Road, Meyer Lane, the Shamshuden subdivision.
Why are we having a hearing on that? I thought it was still in court.
Well, as you may remember in executive session, the planning board made a recommendation to them through our attorney to do some things. Well, a plan is coming back to the board for review as part of a response to that.
Okay, good.
So we
Patrick?
have
Two hearings back to back.
meeting, yeah, a meeting on the 22nd
And the 29th.
and, yeah.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember it as the 22nd too.
Thank you.
And the 5th.
Patrick, to avoid confusion, you said Meyer Lane. Meyer Lane is up the other end of the block. That's where I live. The roadway you're discussing is usually referred to, it's not a roadway, it's a driveway, more or less, in my mind. It's referred to locally as Meyer Extension,
Okay.
just so parties know what they're talking about.
So Meyer Extension is the driveway to what are now 2 houses up there and could potentially be 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And have the butters been notified, or will they be notified of this hearing?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I'm guessing that they're going to have some points of view to express.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I know their sensitivities, so I made them aware as soon as the submission came in, so they understood and could get their word out to anybody else.
Okay. Great. Anything else?
That's it.
Right.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
So why is your wife afraid of horses? Oh, that's right, she
Have their
can't
own
control
mind.
them. She doesn't like dogs either then.
She likes dogs.
She likes dogs.
They're small.
First grade.
Okay.
So
Not
she
afraid of
can,
the horse
And the little
itself,
one
she's
is
just
not,
afraid of riding.
she's 3 now.
because the horse won't obey her.